all the time I felt this very silent but very strong support. Don't think that you are alone in life. Don't think if I want to do this, who's going to help me? How am I going to do this? You will find that energy on the way. And it's not necessary that you find that energy in your partner.
It
You
could come
find
from
that
anywhere.
absolutely, that energy could come from your house here. That energy could come from maybe a craftsman. So these are silent hand holdings, these are signs that we don't see and we don't feel them. And the first thing I saw was when we went to Kotwara was these multitude of women with nothing to do. But the interesting thing was that we could start our brand Kotwara with the women. And we called that experiment Dwar Pe Rozi, employment and doorstep, because the idea was to give women employment
At their doorstep where they could do something.
it was a very dignified way of working. They didn't have to fight with their families to go and work, but they brought back money which was needed.
Welcome to Unbox with Tanvi, a podcast, a YouTube show where we talk about understanding and unraveling human behavior through conversations with people who've lived unconventional lives and are contributing in their way to society. Today, I have with me someone beautiful inside and out. She's a lovely soul. She's an author. She's a production designer. She's a fashion designer. But more than anything else, I think she's just such a beautiful person. And I want to introduce you to Meera Ali. Hi, Meera. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. That's a beautiful introduction. I hope I deserve it.
No, you totally deserve it because the first time I met you, my feeling was just you radiate love and you radiate light and you're very welcoming, and i just I just felt wonderful when I met you, and I've met felt wonderful every time since when I've met you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So tell me, you are a trained architect. You studied architecture, you worked on sustainable building, you did a lot of work in your younger days to recreate buildings in slums and for underprivileged people. How did the journey from architecture to fashion designer? I mean, that's a vast journey to traverse.
Like they say, love makes you do strange things. So after I met Muzaffar, who and we got married within 6 weeks of knowing each other.
Wow, that was quick.
So it pretty much changed my life because to begin with, it was a very unconventional sort of a marriage. Both of us coming from different backgrounds, different communities, different religions, things that I had never thought about before. That such things matter when you find a life partner. But I was made to realize that in the course of our courtship and then eventual marriage, where many people, even from my own family, thought me as an outcast. And it took a while to get back. But fortunately, everybody fell in love with the man I fell in love with. So things panned out well. But one thing I must say that had I not stuck to my guns and had I not felt the way I did and had I not decided to just go with it, which was very strange because even now my daughter asks me that, Mom, how did you know this was the right thing? And I have no answer to give. But I think people should just follow their heart, follow their dreams, follow their passion, and only then do you become what you are destined to become. Otherwise, you're just leading a life, you're just existing, which most people in this world do. They get up in the morning, do their morning chores, they go out, they earn a living, whether, small, medium, big, very large. They come back, they do the same thing, and that's life on a daily basis.
I know what you mean because it, we all go through ups and downs, and I went through this small phase where the only recollection of the day I had was in the morning, have a shower, get out of night suit into clothes, and the day would just pass me by. And at night, the only other time I was registering was getting out of clothes back into night suit. And I was just thinking, I said, this can't be my life, where the only two times of the day where the passing of time is registering is when I'm getting out of pajamas and getting into pajamas. Where the rest of the day was going, I didn't realize, and I said, I can't do this. This is not my life. I think uh, God has blessed me with so many opportunities. The loving family with with the ability to speak and communicate. And I said, I have to be doing more. So I completely understand what you're saying, that you have to follow your dreams, and sometimes more often than not, actually it takes a lot of courage. It must have taken a lot of courage on your part to follow your dream or your
You're absolutely right, because not only is it courage on your part, but it is, you know, in a sense, a very invisible hand holding from your partner, in my case at least. So I was taking a step I knew there was no going back to. I was burning some boats, in the process and taking this jump. And uh, it was difficult. But all the time, I felt this very silent but very strong support. And that helped me. And you know what happens? I think in our lives, all of us have the silent support. We don't see it, we don't feel it. Because don't think that you are alone in life. Don't think if I want to do this, who's going to help me? How am I going to do this? You will find that energy on the way. And it's not necessary that you find that energy in your partner. You find that anywhere. Absolutely. That energy could come from your house here. That energy could come from maybe a craftsman who's helping you with something.
come from a YouTube video that you're watching. It could come from a book you're reading, or just one quotation that you come by. Yeah.
So these are silent hand holdings, these are signs that we don't see and we don't feel them, but they're all there waiting to be grabbed. But I think today, like you said, you can, find this sort of energy even in inanimate things around you. People are reaching out to that now, because so many people, like especially youngsters, who I find very often are kind of just floating, trying to find their space. They have so much in them, but they're just not being able to find that spot where they'll shine. And social media, or like you said, just one thing they read somewhere, it gives them the courage to go in that on that path.
It does take courage, and I think when you believe in something, I think you also find courage that you didn't think you had sometimes, and yeah. So that's when you kind of give up architecture. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't actually, but I found different avenues of expressing it. So after I took this leap into a completely unknown future. With it came a kind of a complete, in a sense, cut off from everything I was familiar with, which also included my job as an architect in a firm in Delhi. So we moved to Kotwara, to Muzaffar's ancestral home, and his father was the last Raja of Kotwara, and was an erstwhile uh, state. So while we moved there, I realized that now at this very young age, awaited so many responsibilities that I could have shirked them and said, "This is not for me," and done my own thing. Muzaffar would never have questioned or argued or said, "Why not this? Why that?" But it's just the way that life unfolded
You felt a sense of responsibility to do something.
to do something. And the first thing I saw was when we went to Kotwara was these multitude of women with nothing to do. All they would do was just sit and stare. The men were still working in the fields, or they were just smoking a hookah or getting drunk. I don't know. But the women were very helpless. So I think that is something that spurned us
To do something about.
to do something and kind of make Kotwara our base again. Like it would have been Muzaffar's family's base, but there was a gap because he left at a very young age to make his films move from Bombay to Calcutta to Aligarh to wherever his work took him. Yeah. And my father-in-law was getting on. He wasn't spending much time there. So in a way, it became like a coming home. And we decided that we would spend our maximum time there. And both of us being creative, so though I wasn't going to an office and working in architecture, there was a lot to do there in terms of conservation of the place, whatever, I felt I had experience enough to do. But the interesting thing was that we could start our brand Kotwara with the women. And we called that experiment Dwar Pe Rozi, employment at doorstep, because the idea was to give women employment
At the doorstep where they could do something.
it was a very dignified way of working. They didn't have to fight with their families to go and work, but they brought back money which was needed. And the women suddenly became more treasured than the men because a home with four women was earning more than a home with four boys. So it was
Beautiful, right? And it must have been very rewarding experience.
absolutely. And if it wasn't that, I don't think we would have had the passion to go forward. And, there were many hardships on the way.
I was just going to ask that. I said, I'm sure the journey to where we're sitting here amidst beautiful clothes and people know about the house of Kotwara. But from that point where women were just sitting and idle and the idea of Dwar Pe Rozi to a point where women were earning, I'm sure that journey couldn't have been simple or easy.
No journey is simple or easy, but each journey has its own beauty.
Yeah, that's true.
You just have to see that as you go along. Because I've seen youngsters today, they get exhausted very fast.
Yeah, I've tried. Nahi ho raha.
हाँ नहीं हो रहा पर खत्म. I tried my best.
It didn't.
It didn't work. I moved on. But that's not it. You see, it's not the from one point to the second point that you have to look at. You have to see all that comes in between. And that is where all your life's experiences, all the beauty that you see, your own growth is happening.
Correct.
If you're not aware of that journey, then again you've gone back to that existence point.
Yeah.
Where you wake up in the morning, take off your pajamas, come back in the evening, get back into them, and that's your existence again. So you're living that same existence, but maybe amidst a lot of comfort and pleasures and parties and
But it is still existing.
yeah. Yeah, there's no beauty in life. The beauty in life is in the struggle in making things happen because you did this, it happened. And in your along with you in your journey, so and so came and you did this. So once I remember we were sitting on the terrace in Kotwara and very early in our marriage, and Muzaffar asked me, what do you think love is? So I thought he's getting all mushy and so and I said, what do you think love is? He says just creating beauty together. And that kind of stuck with me that yes, because when you create something beautiful together, two people. Now, I'm not defining beauty. I'm not saying this is beautiful and that isn't.
Anything that you consider beautiful. Yeah.
Anything that is inclined, you are inclined to, is where that pleasure is.
That is such a beautiful thought. And the foray into food, you've authored this beautiful book, Dining with the Nawabs, and you delved into this whole journey of food. I know you yourself are a fabulous cook, but was it something that you discovered, or was it a passion that existed from when you were younger?
I'm not sure how this really happened, but about 3-4 years before I did the book, our daughter, she studied fashion in London and came back to join us. So I think I believe that in every brand, when new energy comes, there's a lot of forward push you get.
Yeah, that's true.
And having grown up in this environment that she did with us, living with craftspeople, working with them in out, she grew up in the workshops, in the studios. So her philosophy, her approach to design was right. So what happened was that it gave us space, both of us, to do a few more things. And when my publisher, Roli Books, Priya, she approached me and said, I want to do this book. And would you like to do it? I said, why not? Because I was always passionate about food. Having spent so many years in Lucknow after getting married, you realize, what really good taste for Indian food is. And the kind of cuisine that one was exposed to, and then the family cooks and the stories that would go around the house all.
Stories that went with the recipes probably were more interesting than the recipes themselves.
I think, secretly doing this book was not only because I wanted the recipes. I wanted that whole experience of where they came from, why they came from, how are people still attached to it, why are the families and people hold on to their recipes, do they share, what is the culture behind it, what a dining table means, what does it
In that
mean to
culture.
have a table and a spread like that, and what were the why were you entertaining? What was the purpose behind that entertainment? Were you trying to get something out of your guests? It's a very, of course, in that sense, in that period, it was still a bit simple and naive. People were entertaining because they wanted the pass that be
Be to come home and
come
get
home
and
and
to let to look after
network.
them, to network, yeah, which exists even today.
Except that now it's at a ferocious level, that networking. So it was lovely, seeing that gentle networking where the net result of that networking was something very simple as compared to
What people expect networking to give you today.
results today. So, for example, my father-in-law on networking used to tell us a story on the dining table. He was full of stories on the dining table about during the Swaraj movement in the 1930s, before independence. So the governor general was invited to Lucknow for a meeting with the talukidars of Awadh, because he wanted to make sure that they are with the British Raj and not with the Swarajis. So one of the Maharajas, who was a very good friend of my father-in-law's and a very effeminate character, he would dress up in a lehenga choli and wear jewelry, and his bari would dress him up nicely. And in the end, he had nothing to give or take with the Swaraj movement. All he wanted was his kingdom to be fine. So in the end, when he's ready and he's wearing his Cartier, his Bari says, "What is this? You're such a big Maharaja. Why will you wear such a small watch?" So he gives him a big timepiece around a gold chain and around his neck. And he says, "Now you look like a Maharaja." So he goes for the meeting, and the table is set and everybody's talking. It's a very serious meeting. And of course, he dozes off to sleep. And suddenly this alarm rings, and everybody gets nervous that the Swarajis have attacked.
Because the big
And
alarm.
then they realize that the source of the sound is here. So he says, का चक्कर मकर देखा तो मोर बाजत है. Why are you looking so surprised? It is from me that the sound is coming. So that was the beauty of entertainment, and that was the simplicity, in a sense, of networking. But these are life stories to be learned.
True.
And my father-in-law, when he came back, even though he was an aristocrat from a princely state of that same ilk, he couldn't understand this lot. He was a communist. He was a member of the Communist Party of Scotland in 1920s. So he came back with a different idea. So I think, we all, that little time that I spent with him and a lot of time that my husband and his family spent with him, everybody grew up very different to what one sees of
The
people of
need
that
to be
time.
connected to people and to contribute and help, that kind of DNA or value system was ingrained early on, is what you're saying.
And that is what I find is very important, because even today, you know, I mean, especially, being women, we know how difficult it is to work and carry on with bring your stress home, bring it into your relationship with your partner, and then your children, and this and that. And in the middle of all that, the cook phones you and says, "What do you want for dinner?" So it's a difficult life. And if you lose focus, and if you fall into the trap of existence and you don't have at least one good relationship every day, or one good thing that happens to you with other people every day,
If you don't make the effort to connect with someone, do something that you're proud of, or you're happy that, okay, I made the phone call to the friend who was feeling a bit down. It could be something as basic as that. But I think if you don't have anything, or that you don't, if you don't hold on to it, life can slip through your hands. And like you said, for women and women who are working, who are also mothers, there's just a lot of balls being juggled in the air. And I do feel that, something gets missed or a ball gets dropped every now and then, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah, so when you say that, multitasking, I think women were born multitasking. There's nothing new if somebody says, "Oh, I can't multitask." What the hell? Look at your mother, look at your sister, look at yourself, look at women around you. Yes, that's the you're born with it. That's in your DNA.
Yeah, I know because sometimes when as friends we were talking, somebody saying my husband said, "What are you doing all day?" She said, "What was I doing? I went to the factory, I got my work done, I came back, I ensured that there was sabzi, and you wanted something special for dinner that got made, and then in the middle of all of that, some pick and drop from school and college, or like some kid has a class, you drove the kid to class, brought the kid back, maybe got some medicines for your mom-in-law, like there's a lot that fills up women the days of women, but I do want to ask you, how do you keep your sanity, because you're also in a very creative but maybe slightly uh, offbeat eccentric lifestyle, because when your daughter's a designer, your husband's an artist and he's a creative person, you're a creative person yourself. How do you keep the sanity and the practical aspects of life?
Actually, I don't know. Maybe I'm already insane, and that's how I'm surviving. It's just, it's just. I think maybe try not to lose your sense of humor, which I am told continuously because I have the habit of getting very worked up about something, but then I diffuse the thing also very fast. I get upset and then it's over. That's another thing I learned from my husband. Yeah. He said, never sleep after an argument. Always make up before you go to bed, whoever it may be with. Because once you've given that gap,
Then it becomes very
very
difficult to make
difficult, whether it's with somebody in your home or even your friend or even an employee, or your employer maybe, but you have to don't ever. So I think it's important that if you have a short fuse, you should, whatever has gone wrong, you should talk it out, get over with it within the next 5 minutes. Don't carry that baggage because that baggage is not worth carrying. It comes in the middle of everything that you have to do in the day. It makes you sulk, everyone's upset with you, you have a long face and you pretend, oh, I'm not eating, you go on a stupid hunger strike, and this and that, and finally it doesn't help anyone. So to keep your sanity, I think you let the steam go and forget about it, talk it over with whoever's and close the chapter, move on. It's very important to
I
do.
think it's such an important life lesson.
I learned that and it's helped me in the last 30 years.
What's the one piece of advice, or maybe two pieces of advice, you want to give to young women who are working, getting married, got married, maybe about to have a family? What kind of advice would you give them on juggling work, sanity, keeping something for yourself, and doing all of the above?
Get a dog.
Yeah.
It changed my life, I have to say. So like we've discussed, I've been a very busy person all my life and I've never had time to do many things. And COVID happened and we were all home. And I at that time already we had 12 dogs and I was like okay with them, making sure that the food is there for them, the weather.
The looking after in the sense, but खाना मिल गया, सब ठीक है, but that was it.
It was never in me to like, you know, they were never in my face and in my bed or in my cuddles. And in COVID, the couple had babies and we had four little Saluki pups at home. It changed my life in that moment with all that stress of the world over and, people falling sick, people having really bad time, having no staff, having a big business with not being able to, everything was
Yeah,
such,
it was
what
very
it was. It
difficult.
was a
It was
terrible
very
state of flux. And these pups brought so much pleasure into our lives. And my daughter says this, I'm a changed person. I'm a completely different person.
because of the pups.
So one, I would suggest get a pup. It'll add more pain to your life, but at the end of it, it's worth it. And they will teach you so much. They will teach you how to love without expecting anything. They will teach you what loyalty is. They will teach you what simplicity is. Never ask for anything until you're given. They'll teach you what affection is. The minute you have a tear, even at the back of your head, they know it. There's a lot, your children can never compare to that. So get a pup for sure.
I have two, but maybe I should get another one.
And I think another thing is, well, that's on the lighter side. The other thing is that go out and do something positive every day, whether it's positive to yourself, for yourself, whether you directly gain from it, or even person on the road gains from it. And I don't just mean simple charity. Do something positive that makes an impact when you lie back at night and you think, you think of that one thing with a smile on your face. Very important.
I think we are all running for these big milestones, these big goals, and we forget that the joy and passion and energy that we get to accomplish those big things come from these very little things that we do along the way. They give us the fuel to keep going, I guess.
Yeah, somebody you meet 15 years later and says that, I met you and you said this to me, changed my life. That's probably the best thing to hear.
Yeah. I think when you can impact another soul, that is such an addictive and humbling also. But you just feel so good about being alive and having been able to help or contribute to somebody's journey. It's a beautiful feeling. Thank you so much, Meera, for being with us here today. It was lovely speaking with you, and I wish you all the very best. And I'm surrounded by so much beauty at the studio. I'm tempted to, wear everything and look at myself in the mirror. But thank you so much for, being such a gracious host and allowing us to come and shoot here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all on Unboxed from Tanvi, and we'll catch you again on another episode.